It was Christmas Eve of 1989, and I found myself in a village in Liberia, West Africa, with one of the Christian leaders waiting for the people to come for the Christmas Eve vigil. There was the usual sounds of the crickets of the African night, and in the distance you could hear the voice of people, laughter, drum beating, and music and singing. And slowly I could see from two different directions, two different groups of people emerging, coming from different parts of their village, coming in procession with their lit lamps. So we all merged in one place and took off together to another road leading to the church, which was in the outskirts of the village. As we got near the church started to light up with the light coming from the oil lamps. The leader of the village opened the doors of the church, and slowly we all streamed in. A church that was dark and quiet within minutes was full of sound and joy and light. They distributed the lamps all over the church. And I was just imagining at that time, everyone, even it was a small lamp, but not much light, they all made a contribution to the overall light in the church. That was 35 years ago this year. And I will always remember it. And maybe one of the reasons why I remember that Christmas Eve is that on Christmas Eve night, every year, we hear the words from Isaiah. The prophet Isaiah, in the first reading, it tells us, "The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light, and those who live in a land of deep shadow, a light has shone. You have made their gladness greater. You have made their joy increase. They rejoice in your presence as men rejoicing at harvest time." And later on in the reading, we're told, "A child is born to us, a son is given." We are told that he came to break the rod of oppression and injustice to those who are weighed down in unjust situations. He is a Prince of Peace and brings a peace that has no end. That same child was called by his family Emmanuel, God is with us. And later on, when he grew up, he himself stood in public and said, "I am the light of the world." Just imagine somebody walking into a room where you're president saying, "I am the light of the world." You'd be thinking, what arrogance. But we know when we read the life of Jesus, he was far from arrogant. He was a man of humility, of mercy and forgiveness, a man of service and compassion, the light of the world who walked with a towel and a basin to wash the feet of everyone who was prepared to receive his love. That same Jesus also said, "You are the light of the world." So imagining you walking into a room and saying, "I am the light of the world," people will be thinking, what medication is he on? How could he be so arrogant? And yet that's what we're called to be. Jesus sees us as the light of the world. We are thankful for the countless women and men in history down the years have been the light of the world, who at the most critical times of history, times of doom and gloom, darkness and despair, they stood out and acted with courage, with generosity, with hope and a commitment to creating a new future. And from a human point of view, they had no evidence that this was possible, but they continued on working, being the light in the midst of the darkness. Let us give thanks also for the ordinary people in our lives, members of our families, our communities, maybe our workplaces, who also were light in our lives, who in one way or another, through their acting, through their listening, through their speaking, encouraged us to believe in the light. We are living in a world which I would call is very much serving up dark news. 24/7 on the media, we hear about doom and despair. Now, I'm not saying we should put our head in the sand and forget about the suffering and the misery of the world. It is a reality, and Jesus also would invite us to look at that reality. But maybe we should have a more balanced diet. Let us feed ourselves, our mind and our spirits, with examples and stories of those who are and who were light. Let us read articles and books and look at movies that inspire us of people who were light in the middle of the darkness. Christmas time is a time of gift giving, and I'm sure many of you have spent more money than you would like to think about on gifts for your family and for your friends. And that is good. But the greatest gift maybe that we can give this Christmas, and in fact throughout the whole new year, is to ask ourselves a question, and ask it seriously. How can I be the light of Christ this day? How can I be the light of Christ to this person in front of me? How can I be the light of Christ in this situation I find myself in? If we take time to ask the question, and if we take time to listen to our hearts, we will get an answer. Let us light a candle instead of curse the dark. May this Christmas and each day of the new year be filled with light and love.